Now pretend we've done multiple changes to our computer. Currently, we've only modified our README, but we potentially have multiple files in this project that we're working on. We might have multiplied multiple files. You might have modified only one file. However much files you've modified, you now want to save it. You've worked for a while and you think this is a good point. This is a stopping point for the current work session or whatever it is. I have a good piece of working code. I'm going to save the current files I have. To do that, we're going to do what's called a commit. Now, there's multiple ways that things need to happen, but I'm going to start by saying that there's a process here we're going to be using called get add first. Using get add to add the type of files that you want to save. Which files in particular are you trying to save? And then commit is to actually make the save. So there's two parts to this. Load up all the files that you want to make a save of, and then finally commit all the files you need to save. Now, this is a very minimal lesson, but when you have multiple files to load, you might decide to add one or only more files. So you might decide to add the README file, for example. If you had another file, maybe you had another file called the bio.txt file, you had another file called the index.html. Maybe those are the three files you modified that you'd like to add, and you want to add them directly. You can type all that. But oftentimes, the more common thing a lot of people do is add up any changes they've made on their local computer by typing get add and then period. Now, earlier I mentioned that the period means your parent directory. What does a period mean? The period means the current directory. So by typing get add dot, you're saying add all of the files in the current directory that have been modified. That's the most common way you're going to see things. So by typing get add dot, I've now loaded all changed files to be saved. They're not saved yet. They're just loaded up to be saved. And then I can now do a get status to see how that's looking. And it's now saying there is some changes in this green file instead of red file that are ready to be saved. If I have a reason not to save that file, I can use this command right here to get rid of it. So if I'd like to, I could type in, say, get restore -- stage, and I can say get rid of the readme.md. I don't want to save that one. That's not something, even if it has changes on it, I'm not ready to save that file. But I'm not going to actually do that. I'm going to leave it as is. And the next step is to actually say, I am done. I have loaded all of the files that I'd like to save, and get now has a list of all the files I want to save. But I have a choice now to say, I'm actually going to make that save occur. And the most common way people do this is using get commit. You're committing these files onto a saved location. You're making a timeline stopping point that you can reload in the future if you need to see what the files were at that particular state in time. Get commit on its own has multiple options. We're going to go with the very basic one right now, which is a -m. We're going to add a message to our commit. So we're about to save all of the work we've just done recently, which granted was just this one modification of the README. We're going to save all the work we've just done, and we're going to make a message saying, like, this is what we did. And so I'm going to put in quotes, make certain you close your quotes as well. So it's got to have starting and stopping. I'm going to say I checked off my finished tasks in my quote, because if you don't, you get into a problem that you can get out of, but you'd like to not to. If you end up accidentally getting into stuck and you hit enter right now, hit Control C, probably will get you out of it. A couple times you might have to click it, but please don't do it. Go ahead and use a starting and ending quote, and you'll probably be good to go. And what we're now doing is we're saying commit all of those files that have been added to be saved. Adding doesn't save, adding loads up files and say, these are the ones you want to save. Actually doing commit is when you say, I'm good, these are the files I want to have a save file of. Hit enter, and you should now have a new save. We're going to do one thing just to check it. We're going to type in get log. So all of the possible saves that have happened over time. And so we'll see hopefully our newest save at the top, which is for me right here. Without getting into too much depth, this is a unique number that gets generated that says if you ever want to reload an old save, that's the number you want to use to load it. And so that's kind of like its unique identification number. So I could reload this old one by copying and pasting that in and saying, let's load that one up. If you did type get log and you're stuck right here because you have a command prompt waiting, you can hit a Q to exit to get back to your regular prompt.